Thank you so much for joining this week's Elevate webinar. Slightly different topic the last few weeks, looking more at sport and recovery, which is nice to have a break from the very COVID conversations we've been having the last few weeks, naturally. So this is a really kind of nice breather of a session, I think, for the time being. COVID will probably get mentioned. Let's not pretend it's not going to, but there'll be a lot of conversation around sport, which will be a nice change of scene for us here. The session is being recorded, so if you do need to duck out at any point, it will be on YouTube in the next few days. If you find the content useful and interesting, you can obviously pass it on then to any industry friends or friends in general with a topic like this, any colleagues, and they'll be able to re-watch. And then also there'll be links to our panelists, Elisabeth and George, if you've got any other questions to ask them afterwards. During this webinar, if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A box. If you've got any comments you want to make, just are comments as opposed to questions, feel free to use the chat. I don't always check the chat box because the last couple of weeks it's been really busy and I can't keep up with it. So I just check the Q&As predominantly for questions. So that's probably the best place to pop them. I've had a couple of questions come through yesterday, so they'll be asked anyway from a few people that are going to watch the rewatch. So for those who don't know me, my name's Lucy Finlay. I am the event director for Elevate. Elevate, a couple of years ago, acquired COPA, which is for chiropractors, osteos, physios, podiatrists and acupuncturists, and the Elite Sports Expo. So this gave us a massive opportunity to get more in touch with the other parts of physical activity as opposed to just the fitness side. So it's a great opportunity for us to look more at physios and osteos and the elite sport market. So that's why it's a great session for us today. So I'm going to pass over to our panelists. This conversation will look at CBD oil and the benefits for training and recovery within the elite sports and performance market. So Elisabeth, could you just introduce yourself, and then I'll pass over to George to introduce himself as well.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Lucy. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr Elisabeth Philipps, and I'm a clinical neuroscientist. So that means that I have particular specialisms in the area of the brain and central nervous system and conditions and diseases that affect these areas. I'm also one of the UK's leading CBD experts and also expert in the endocannabinoid system, which is the main system in which CBD works in the body. So I'm really looking forward to answering all your questions today around this area. My main approach towards health is looking at diet and lifestyle, so sort of an integrative medicine approach, and really applying this in how we can improve performance, recovery, training, resilience, all the key areas in sport, but health in general as well.
Well, lots of words said that I didn't quite understand, so I'm sure you'll be able to tell me a lot more about.
We're trying to figure them out then.
Yeah, I know George has been hearing this for a long time.
and George, can you just introduce yourself as well? That'd be great.
Firstly, thank you, Lucy, for having us on here. My name is George Kruis. I've been fortunate to play professional rugby for the last kind of 12 years, been involved in quite a successful club, but also, some success within the international scene as well. So very fortunate to have been in that position and still playing. But I guess in the last couple years, in 2018, CBD became legal for athletes to use. And that's really kind of where we started. Myself and another professional rugby player called Dom Day started up a business called 4-5 CBD, which is our numbers in the playing field. And so kind of all led from there. We met Elisabeth about 1.5 years ago, and this is the position we're in now.
That's good, because I was wondering why it was called 4-5 CBD, and that's a good thing to know. Okay, so you said it's become legal in the last couple of years for sport. So I don't know much about CBD. I knew it's become legal. I know it's used for different conditions, and I know it's used in the elite sport market. But Elisabeth, can you tell me a little bit more about what it is, where it comes from, and what it's used for?
Of course.
I'll let Elisabeth go into the major detail, but from our side, it's a compound from a hemp plant, and also obviously from a cannabis plant. But we'll extract ours from hemp. which tends to be higher in CBD and lower in THC. And basically, for us, we're as a company, we've got our hands tied in terms of any medical claims and bits like that we can and can't make. But a lot of our customers, when we've done research and surveys, the top 3 things they'll use it for: anxiety, pain relief, and sleep, basically, to benefit sleep. So from our point of view as athletes, we kind of both had setbacks in early January 2018, and in, Dom had one in January, myself had one in February, and kind of in January 2018, WADA, which is the World Anti-Doping Association, which is kind of what we go by in terms of what supplements we can use, the way things are drugs tested for athletes. So they let CBD as an isolate on its own become legal. Within a hemp plant, there'll be maybe 110 or so different cannabinoids. CBD is a cannabinoid. THC is also a cannabinoid, so that's the one that will get you high within a plant. But it will also trigger a drugs test. So for us, we're kind of in this predicament where we're athletes. We really want to try and try and get as much gains from as many different methods we could use, which are obviously on the side of being legal. So for us, we'd heard a lot about it in America. A lot of people in the sports industry, trialing and taking CBD, and it was just a kind of an obvious move for us. Who, when we tried it and got benefits from it, then we wanted to, I guess, create a company which we knew kind of where the provenance of the product was coming from, and kind of adhere to the kind of the testing regulations that we needed. So that's how we set about going to do it. It was mainly driven by kind of what's in the product, the quality of the product, and like I said, that's how we're here today.
Yeah, no, I mean, George has covered a lot. It's good to know you listen to me, George and Dom. So yes, I mean, it's right. CBD is derived from cannabis, and I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes from. I mean, certainly as a neuroscientist and someone that has been aware and has used medicinal cannabis, that's been on the scene for thousands of years. But as George said, it's part of the cannabis plant, the THC in particular, which is what makes cannabis illegal. So what kind of really interests me was the fact that we've now got CBD, which stands for cannabidiol, and as George said, is actually just one of many dozens, hundreds of different cannabinoids that are found within hemp plants. CBD actually has a number of really important benefits, and the fact that we can isolate this, but we can extract this and we can use this in a food supplement so that it's far more widely available to people is a really exciting prospect. So CBD, another sort of really key part of how it acts is that, when we take a drug, so for example, a painkiller, it's quite a blunt instrument in the body, quite a blunt tool, it kind of switches pain off, really. It stops the inflammation, switches pain off. Whereas what we're using CBD for, whether it be for pain or, as we say, it can help with mood, anxiety, sleep, is we're actually balancing the body's own systems. And that's really key in how it works. So this very long word, the endocannabinoid system, this is actually the system that CBD mainly works in. We've not known about this system for very long, which is crazy when you think about, we all know about the gut, we know about the central nervous system, the cardiovascular system, but the endocannabinoid system, or the ECS, was only really discovered around about in the 1990s. So it's, it's a fairly, sort of new system, if you like. And CBD works within that system, and this particular system in our body is really key for brain health, for immune function, and it's found throughout the body, in our gut, it's found in our spleen, our kidneys, our lungs, our brain, our spinal column. So, again, because it's so widespread, it shows how important CBD, can be, as part of a program. So I think, the key is, we'll talk a little bit more about this as a food supplement, but it's, part of a program. So I know we've got all of this, CBD cures everything. It can be a very important part of the jigsaw puzzle. Certainly from my clinical practice, I think, George will say, and Dom from their experience as well, it really can help, reduce inflammation and improve pain or improve sleep, which is what I use CBD for. But at the same time, it's part of a program. So we're not saying you can take CBD remedy and it will cure everything. You know, you need to be doing, you know, the other parts of your training, of your recovery, of your resilience programs around diet and lifestyle as well. But it can be a really key part.
Yeah, I think that's it. It is a supplement. It supplements an already good training system, good diet.
Yeah,
you know, everything that all comes together, putting that time into
absolutely.
to sleep, but it obviously helps with it. It's just a supplement.
Yeah. Well, it does, because it affects this, you know, particular system. So it provides that balance. And, you know, I think, you know, I mean, I take a particular interest in food supplements because there's a lot of products on the market that leave a lot to be desired around quality, around efficacy, especially in the sports market as well. So, you know, it's all about getting, you know, the right type of food supplement for you and the right quality. And that still applies with CBD as well. So, you know, as George has, you know, sort of intimated, actually, you know, the provenance to understand, you know, how that product has been produced and the certification, so you know it's got the right amount of CBD in there, for example, is all really important when you're choosing a product as well.
Yeah, of course. So George, you obviously use it for your performance. Personally, what benefits have you seen? When did you start using it? As soon as it became legal? When did you start picking it up, and what kind of benefits did you see, and how long did it take to see them? Oh, just on mute still, I think.
So thank you. So originally it was a kind of February 2018. So Dom was using it in January, and by then maybe one or two in every club was using it, or wanted to use it but didn't really know how to. So yeah, I started then. And I would 100% back up what Dr. Elisabeth said in terms of I'm very aware of all the kind of hype around it, and you know, it was obviously a clear marketing campaign that, you know, people have jumped on board, and it's kind of blown it to a point where, you know, maybe people will be disappointed in a product, or you know, people have really overhyped the whole thing. I really do believe it should be seen as like a supplement. It should be seen as a kind of everyday or you know, to supplement what you are doing. But having said that, I think that with all the research coming out and everything, you know, I really do think it will be part of like a long-term part of our you know, our recovery and everything, that much like vitamin C, vitamin D3. I really do think it will be like a long-term supplement that people will take daily for years to come. So so in terms of myself, personally, I found it benefit my sleep better. And I think as an athlete, like a lot of things we're always told is you get your sleep completely right. That's like one of the key things. I'm sure it's well, I'm finding it very much in the business side as well, but it's pretty essential to everyday life. And for me, that was one area which you know, wasn't necessarily like terrible, but it could have done with some improvement. But yeah, and I'll use it alongside, you know, a more improved sleep program now. So I'll have a more of an emphasis on, you know, how do I get better sleep, and that's one of the tools I'll use to promote a better sleep.
And do you find it helps with anything more on the actual, like the physical, how you feel? Does it help with other parts of recovery? You know, what other kind of benefits other than the sleep side have you noticed, and how long does it take for them to kind of set in?
Yeah, so I'll mainly target just trying to get a better sleep, and I'm aware that that as a company owner, in terms of like the medical claim side of it, I'm pretty comfortable not dipping into that. But like I said, there's a lot of people who use it for, in terms of once we've surveyed them, who use it for pain management and bits like that. So it's obviously with the highs and lows of kind of professional sport, it's something that that interests me unbelievably, you know, a large amount. But yeah, and also on a I guess a different, probably, you know, probably a supercharged topic would be medical cannabis. I feel like there's a long way to go in terms of where that topic can go. You know, you look across in Germany, there's, you know, I think there's 250,000 people on medical cannabis prescriptions. So it's growing, and I think that's doubled in the last few years. So in terms of in terms of that as a topic as well, I think it's massively interesting, and that's where kind of we see kind of long-term use of CBD and medical cannabis going. For us as athletes who are constantly looking for kind of marginal gains, we're looking for different ways to recover. Maybe there has been a general trend throughout the world for a more natural alternative way, and I do believe a lot of the things which, as Elizabeth said, have been used for thousands of years and not been questioned until in the last maybe couple hundred years when laws have come in. I think a lot of those topics and those areas and kind of more natural remedies will be becoming a larger staple in our supplement routine.
Yeah, some kind of different approaches definitely become more popular. So Elisabeth, you obviously deal with elite sport, but are you finding other people are using it for other benefits as well? Where else do you see in the clients that you have, where do you see people using it and seeing success?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, kind of the main areas are around pain, especially inflammatory pain. So, it's very sort of popular for joint conditions, arthritis, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, areas like that. I also see people getting great benefit from sleep. Now, as George said, I mean, kind of sleep is really one of the pillars of our health. And, if you're going to be more anxious, then quite often your sleep is affected. So it's whether CBD is working for sleep or anxiety or both. It can be quite difficult to tease out, but there's no doubt that improvement of sleep is going to help numerous physical and psychological benefits as well. I've had patients taking around migraine, again, sort of, inflammatory type disorders, also, sort of hormonal disruption, things like endometriosis, for example, hormonal balance, has certainly had, an impact, again, probably because of the reduction of inflammation within the body and helping that area. One of the sort of key areas that I found as well, and this is within my research, is that not only though is CBD oil reducing the inflammation in the body, which is going to have an effect on how we manage pain or how we're affected by pain, but also it can change our perception of pain, which is a really remarkable thing because we've got this endocannabinoid system, lots of receptors in our brain, and so it changes how we perceive pain as well as how our body sort of reacts to pain. So really we're looking at something that has very subtle and sort of multi-level activity as well within the body. So I think this is why it has such a wide reach and a wide positive effect across many people and many conditions. So the age ranges that I've worked with is everything from sort of children, teenagers, right through to people in their sort of 80s. So again, you're getting the right product, the right dose, within the right program. You've got something that's really going to be able to help a wide range of areas. But I'm the first to admit that CBD research is lacking in human population studies and in clinical studies. It's kind of playing catch up with the boom in popularity, but at the same time there is some really good research beginning to come out now around looking at how this can affect people with different conditions. And in fact, actually there has just been a really good sports review paper as well that's come out by an Australian group, released just in the last couple of weeks, really looking at how CBD, back in talking about sport, but CBD can help in these different areas within sport of pain management, improving tissue conditions as well, so improving joint health, bone health, tissue health, as well as around the performance anxiety side, sleep. So it's really beginning to show itself in the research, as well as all of the sort of anecdotal evidence that we're collecting along the way as well.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. It has the two sides, obviously the physical, like what you actually feel, helping with the actual physical recovery, tissue recovery, inflammation, etc. But the other part that's really interesting, I think this is something that often gets discussed with elite athletes, obviously sleep and recovery, and that goes across, even amateur athletes or these kind of warriors that get really into triathlons or marathons or whatever. But the other thing you mentioned was anxiety and performance anxiety, and that's something that often gets discussed when it comes to athletes. You're like the top in the world, but if you you have that, therefore there's so much pressure if you don't achieve, if you don't score the goal, win the medal, etc. There's a massive pressure there. So are you finding it's helpful for that side of things? Obviously it helps, like you say, with the anxiety and the sleep, and it all packages up. Are you finding a lot of athletes are using it for that part of their mental health as well?
I mean, certainly it's becoming much wider, and I think George is probably better positioned, on the rugby pitch to be able to explain through this. So yeah.
I think on a personal level, I don't really suffer with too much anxiety or nerves or stress. I mean, I'm sure I get stressy at some points, but in terms of the anxiety side, I don't necessarily suffer with that too much, and but I do think a lot of people probably do and are very interested in it. But then there's also like the whole kind of is it okay to open myself up, and talk about these sort of things, especially in sport. It's kind of like a bravado type thing. So I think there is that sort of side of it. There is a huge interest. But it's just breaking down barriers, as always, with kind of mental health or anxiety or things like subjects like this. And I think like once there's a more education around it, once there's more research around it, and once probably more like nutritionists are on board, there's a lot of people who are we're in a sport where exactly that, we've got to get things right, we've got to win things, and a lot of it is based on performance, and there's a lot of people in sport, from the doctors to the nutritionists to the coaches, who are very open and very interested in, probably what is seen as alternative things. So I think there is a huge amount of interest, and yeah, I read a study that was done on our Premiership and our Championship, which are the top two leagues in terms of use of CBD, and there was some really interesting figures in that, in terms of why people weren't taking it, what are they interested, who carried on taking it, and there was some really supporting kind of figures that came out of that, but also left with a lot of questions of there's a lot more that can be done, and I completely understand a lot more research needs to go into it, and already is, with the relaxation of kind of laws on cannabis across the world. So for me it's really exciting. Like I said, I think it's something that in kind of 3 or 4 years time there could be a lot of us thinking, okay, well, this is now part of my routine.
Well, I think also, as George said, with the stigma side around performance anxiety, if you've got a product that you can take for sleep, and you can sort of, you're not saying, oh, I'm anxious, you can say, well, I'm going to get better quality sleep, and that's going to help the anxiety, the nerves, the stress feeling, around competition, around performance. So actually, you've got something that can almost take the stigma away from performance anxiety, because you don't even really need to talk about that, though we should be, it should be an open discussion, but that might help people as well. That's
exactly what I was about to actually ask. I was saying, I wonder whether now it's an opportunity for people to take it for other benefits. They might be aware, they might not be aware that it helps with that performance anxiety as well, or so there are reports and claims that it does help with that, and then they might find that actually I'm not feeling as anxious, or I'm able to manage that better as maybe like as a byproduct to what the reason they were going to use it anyway, which might open up the conversation then, because then people might say, actually, I'd started taking it for this, but it really helped with this. And I think that it is an ongoing problem. There is a stigma around it still, which is crazy, because you're put under so much pressure as athletes. Yes, we have pressure in a more business setting, but that's not broadcast on the TV and out there for kind of scrutiny of people. No one sits and says, oh, that's easy, I could have made that sale or that organized that better than her, but you always get it. I find it mad when I watch people watch sport, and I'm like, why are you moaning? Like, it's their job, you can't do it. Why are you kind of saying when someone doesn't get that shot? So yeah, hopefully that it does give, like you say, as kind of a segue to get some benefits from it without having to kind of delve into it as that kind of reason being. So you mentioned before, obviously, it only became legal to use in sport in the last couple of years. How is it being kind of taken on? Obviously, you mentioned that at the beginning only a couple of people from each team were using it. Is it becoming more popular? I know there is a lot of popularity around it, but how's it viewed at the moment, basically within the space? How do you see it viewed, George?
Well, I think originally we came in thinking we'd get a bit more stigma around it, a bit more pushback. And rightly so. There should be a lot of a lot of checks around kind of drugs tests and all that stuff. Like, as an athlete, I'm tested kind of between 6 and 10 times a year, maybe. So trying to bring in I guess what is a cannabis or hemp-based product is, we thought would be controversial enough. But I guess the encouraging thing from my side in terms of people who are active or sports was, people are just interested in it. People were I think the barriers have already been, had been broken down. There's some really interesting figures around, do people think medical cannabis, which is a different subject to CBD, should be ready and should be legalized, and it is legalized, but should be more open to people. And figures around that are suggesting that, people are pretty accepting and within CBD and medical cannabis. So for us, we thought we'd probably get a bit more pushback, but we hadn't. And in terms of usage, I think that number might now be around kind of 4 or 5 people will be using it or have tried it or will continue using it within different clubs. But like I said, people who either injured and then get injured again or have continuous injuries, they're very open to looking at any routes. There's always different kind of physio equipment or different recovery methods that people are using and just finding kind of what's right for them. So I think people are open. People are very, like I said, into marginal gains, which at the end of the day make a bigger product. So for us, if there's a use in there within that, then that's a win, really.
Yeah. And I think, just to sort of put here at the moment as well, as George said, we're talking about CBD today, obviously, and CBD products. And then we've got medicinal cannabis. And I think what can confuse people is this whole THC issue. So THC is like a sister compound in a way to CBD. The difference being is that THC is illegal. Now, it's not the bad guy from the health point of view, in that, it does have health benefits when properly balanced with CBD, but it does make a product either needing a license, so therefore medicinal cannabis, or illegal, as in street. So, what we're talking about here with CBD products is a product to be a food supplement must have less than 0.02% THC. So any product that you see that's out on the market labeled as CBD, any company should be able to produce that certification to show that there is less than 0.2% THC, which is what makes the product legal. So that level of THC is going to have no effect. You're not going to get any high or anything off it. But then going into the sports side, as George said, that's THC is still a banned substance, under the WADA rules. So there are then products which are 0% THC, and then that enables athletes, professional athletes, and people who are tested, because of course there's a lot of professions where people are drugs tested as well, in order to take CBD products. So it might be if you're not tested, then you can take a food supplement which is the 0.2% or less THC. If you are tested athlete or tested in your profession, then you're taking a 0% THC product. So THC isn't bad for your health, but it's obviously what makes a food supplement illegal or testing a problem. So.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it is kind of, obviously there's so many different ones out there on the market. There's so many different ways that you can take it, rub it, you ingest it. I've seen bath bombs with it, all sorts of kind of different things going on with CBD. So when you're looking at sport, obviously George, in the rugby world, Elizabeth, are you finding other sports taking it up, and are they more team sports? Are you finding individual athletes? Does that, it being legal, is that across the whole board? Is that in every single sport, or of any other sports?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I have discussions. I mean, I've worked with individual athletes, either, I mean, certainly within cycling, I've known a few cyclists, tennis players that have been using CBD. So those are maybe, I mean, cycling, team sport, individual sport, tennis, more of an individual sport. I've had discussions with, GPs from football clubs. So, again, I think it's, I mean, obviously, George works within, more of the club environment, but, at the end of the day, it's down to an individual athlete as to where they want to see improvements and what they want to try, whether they feel comfortable trying it or whether it fits part of their program, whether they're interested. But certainly the people that I've spoken to are really intrigued and really interested by it and want to know more. And, I would say, again, with the right product, making sure if you're a tested athlete, you're getting a 0% product, then give it a try, work with it within your program, and and see the benefits, if they occur, and whether it works for you. So yeah, there's certainly a huge general interest about this, but it's there's a lot of either stigma or just untruths that are around in the market as well. So we need to just be able to bust some myths so people feel safe taking the product.
So George, when obviously athletes pick it individually based on what you want to achieve, or kind of the areas you want to improve on, are there any clubs out there where it's actually being recommended by management or a club doctor, or is it being suggested to the whole team, or is it really just completely down to the individual player to decide if they want to take it or not?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably more individual based. There are a lot of that nutritionists who are very interested. I think what nutritionists in a professional environment go off is whether something is, whether a product they can recommend is informed sport tested, and that will be like a measurement or a degree of testing that suits what professionals can do. From ourselves, informed sport don't currently test CBD. So what we do is we send ours to a company called BSCG, which is Banned Substance Control Group in America. And they will do a very similar job. So they test for over 400 banned substances, and they just make sure that basically your product conforms with WADA guidelines. So there's a little bit of a barrier there for us, for nutritionists, and we completely see their point of view that they can only really go by informed sport-based products, but unfortunately, unfortunately, they don't do that at the moment. They are doing a version of that, I believe, in the next 6 months or so, and we'll absolutely jump on board with that. But until then, we can show and prove as much as we can, and do all the testing that is required. But there are a lot of, like I said, we had a lot of nutritionists. We get a lot of doctors always in conversation with us in terms of how things are going, how testing is going, how research is going, because ultimately, like we talked about earlier, if there's a benefit to the player, then they want to be involved in that side of it. So yeah, I'd say that's kind of where we're at the moment.
So is there any reason why informed sport aren't testing it yet? Is it just because it's new and it's kind of on their list of things to get to, or is there kind of question marks over it from them?
Yeah, the main thing is, I think, around the wording from WADA. So at the moment, it says CBD is the only cannabinoid that is legal. So THC, but also like CBG, CBN, CBV, all of those are classified as then banned. So for the moment, to test all of those different cannabinoids, informed sport, I believe, are looking at options around that. Obviously, with BSCG, they've got a certified hemp program, and we run ours through there. So I think it's just a matter of timing, but also kind of just the due diligence around making sure that testing procedures are on it.
I think, I mean, in the UK, you know, we're playing catch up. I mean, there's obviously very different laws and regulations around cannabis, around THC, CBD in the States. So, you know, in the UK, we're really playing catch up with the boom in popularity. You know, that's now, as George said, just taking a little bit of time to resolve at the more sort of, you know, legal level.
Yeah. So obviously on the sports side, it's being used, and I completely, looking at George, I can tell that if I decided to take it, he's going to need quite a lot more than I would. So how does that work in regards to dosing? How do you take it? Like I said, there's so many different things out there. And how do you work out what is best for you? Is it trial and error? How long do you kind of go with something?
Yeah, well, I'll talk a little bit about dosing, and then George can explain maybe a bit more about the range of products that are available. So yeah, so, you know, dosing is on an individual basis. My recommendation is to start with an oil, with a mouth spray in particular, because that's the best route of absorption of CBD into the body, you know, into the bloodstream. You can get capsules, but they aren't as well absorbed, but they, you know, have the advantage of, you know, exactly how much CBD per capsule. And you also don't get the taste either, because for some people the taste is still an issue, though, you know, a lot of the products, including 4,5, is a much milder taste because of the carrier oil that's used. So always, you know, start with a mouth spray, and the mantra is start low, go slow, because what you're doing is you are balancing the body's endocannabinoid system. You're balancing your own systems. So if you just take a huge hit in one go, you know, the system isn't going to know what to do with it and not process properly. So the recommendation is you get the oils in different strengths of CBD. You can find 500 milligram, 1,000 milligram, 2,000 milligram. My recommendation would be to start with a 500 or 1,000 milligram spray, and you can get them in droppers as well. You're placing the product under the tongue, so you want to take it away from food or drink, sort of, you know, 10 minutes either side of the dose. And, you know, really, you know, starting off with probably around about sort of 5 to 10 milligrams, you know, on the first dose. So for a 500 milligram spray, that equates to about 4 sprays, you know, sort of, you know, between 2 to 4 sprays. And you're building up over the next sort of, you know, 3 or 4 days, you know, to another couple of sprays. And then you sort of keep increasing until you begin to see the benefits. What I would say is this isn't just finite. You don't just carry on taking more and more. You will get to a ceiling therapeutic benefit, you know, the limit. For most people, I tend to find that's, you know, anywhere between about, you know, sort of 15, 20 milligrams of CBD daily, maybe up to sort of 50, 70 milligrams daily as well. The current guidelines are saying no more than 70 milligrams of CBD daily. Yeah, there's a lot of movement in that, to my mind, my personal opinion, because of the research it's based on, but, you know, we have to say that as current guidelines. But yeah, so, you know, you're starting with a spray, and then you're beginning to sort of, you know, build up, and of course the higher dose that you go to, you can then go to a higher dose CBD spray and cut down the number of sprays and save money, basically. So, you know, that's really the best way of doing it. And then of course you get the rubs, muscle rubs, joint gels, which you can add in on top of that, because they provide sort of topical application, so that they, you know, sort of provide benefits at the point of where you applied them. So that's my advice around CBD. I mean, I take around about 15 milligrams of CBD every evening now, about 20 minutes before I go to bed, and that really helps with the quality of my sleep. So that, you know, I've been around about on that dose for about the last probably about 8 months, 6 to 8 months. So I find if I take any more, then, you know, it doesn't have any added benefits. So that's where I'm at. But I know George, and I know Dom as well. I've spoken with Dom. He takes more for his you know, sort of pain management side. But as you said, that's going to be affected by body weight, size. So yeah, you need a little bit of working out, but once you start, it's fine. You begin to see the benefits if they're going to occur relatively quickly. So you can work it out relatively quickly. So.
Cool. And so, George, there's obviously different products, mainly spoken about taking it as a spray or droplet. Do you personally see benefit in kind of any of the other kind of like rubs and ointments and things like that? Do you use those as well, or do you predominantly use the spray and stuff?
Yeah, I'm more oil. I like the oil. I think if you look at what our customers buy, majority of them are capsules or oils. But we do have, we've got a menthol balm, but also a joint gel, which is a thermal, and they're very much mixed in with kind of products that we're quite used to as athletes. So maybe you might have like a deep heat. So it's kind of mixed in with that to I guess to suggest use, and also for added benefits, such like menthol with inflammation and things like that. So for us, that's the kind of reasoning behind them. We are very strict in terms of, like, we don't want to make it faddy. We don't want to go into such things like bath bombs and things like that. For us, there's got to be a use for it, and we're kind of quite realistic in that approach. So we've got kind of our main SKUs are oils through a different strength and flavour, our capsules, and then a joint gel and a muscle rub. We've got a couple of side bits, but they're all kind of very much on track with what's an athlete or what's an active person going to need or want.
Yeah, I think that's useful, isn't it? Like you say, with the gels and things, if they are kind of, the CBD element is an added on to the benefits it would give you, like the cooling or the deep heat or whatever option. And so do you find that for you, when do you take it? Because obviously Elizabeth says she takes it in the evening. Do you find that works for you as well? It fits into your routine, or do you have to take it in the evening? Or
yeah, I will take it in the evening, and I'll also probably take it actually similar times to Dr. Elisabeth, kind of 20 minutes before bed. But I won't take it every evening. I'll take it for when I think I need it. I'm quite along with my kind of supplements use, I will tend to try and phase it and take it for times which I need to, really. But that's, I guess, my approach. Dom's more of a daily kind of oil in the morning and the evening. So yeah, it's very individual, I'd say.
There's probably so many things that you could be taking, especially as an athlete. I mean, I just enjoy training and running, and the amount of things that's at certain times I forgot I'm just rattling because I've just taken XYZ because I've got this aching and that causing trouble. So yeah, I think it is useful to phase it, because also then you might be able to work out when something is working, because if you've taken it out and whatever comes back, a side effect comes back, at least you know. You mentioned that you use it when you need it. Obviously the last 4 months have been, for not just athletes but for everyone, a bit of an anxious and uncertain time. Are you finding an increase in people getting to know the product and trialing the product, with the last 4 months being such a testing time for people? Question to both of you, but if we start with George.
Yeah, I think you can kind of tell the environment through maybe the questions you're getting through customers, through through people that might be regular customers, or just people who are trying to who are exploring different options. So I would agree, it does feel like there's clearly there's a heightened kind of awareness around things like anxiety and kind of people's position. Yeah, and I'd say that would be quite reflective in definitely our online sales have been stronger. So I think there has been, I'd say there is a leaning towards people looking at different options for the current situation that we're in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, certainly, my work around sort of, health and well-being hasn't been affected, because, people are taking an, even greater interest at this time. And certainly, in the number of, webinars and meetings and journals that I'm writing for, has only really increased in the CBD area. But I think what's also really interesting, I mean, people are taking more of a personal interest in their health, but also they're looking for more natural methods as well. So, rather than the quick fixes. So, something like CBD is a really attractive prospect because it's derived from plants, it's fitted in as a natural part of your regime. So, I think, again, that's sort of raising a lot of interest as well because of the origins of where CBD comes from. And, actually, I just want to point out as well, we haven't really talked, I mean, George and I have talked about CBD for sleep, But then also people are taking CBD during the day, and they're taking it to improve energy or to improve mood. So CBD doesn't act as a sedative, okay? So it doesn't knock you out like a sleeping pill. There's all sorts of research going on as to what it does, but I won't bore you here because it's quite detailed and quite scientific. But basically it just helps improve your sleep quality, is what the data is beginning to suggest. But if you take CBD during the day, it's not going to make you feel sleepy because it's not acting as a sedative. So it's going to be acting in other ways in your system. So it's going to be helping you to feel energized. So for example, I do sometimes take CBD during the day if I want to just feel, a bit more focused or a bit brighter, or, that can have, a sort of an effect as well. Either that or dark chocolate, one of the two will normally give me a bit of zip. But yeah, so just to point that out around CBD, it's not a sedative, so you can take it during the day as well. So.
Okay, yeah, that's useful to know, because I was thinking, oh, you seem to both take it in the evening. Yeah. Is it best in that reason? No. For that reason, but it can be used any time, and it will have lots of different benefits throughout.
Absolutely. So it's not going to make you sleepy or drowsy. You're going to be able to train, perform, all of that. It's not going to affect those aspects or any aspects.
So where do you see the future of CBD? Obviously, we've mentioned there are limited studies and papers about it. I'm sure they will be increasing over time as the interest is there, and it's a product that has stuck in people's minds, and people are starting to find out more about it. Where do you see it going, not just in the sports world, but also in the general population? I know that you guys stock 4/5 CBD in places like Boots, so it's obviously in the kind of mainstream market. Anyone can kind of pick it up, which is obviously a starting point, but where is it going to go in the next kind of few years? Big question, I know, but yeah, how do you see it moving forward?
I'll take a stab from my side. I think at the moment there's a process called novel foods, which is kind of it's like a compliancy sort of safety, testing procedures around to make sure, I think, everyone pretty much on the same board, same levels, and at the moment there is, like we said earlier, there's probably there's a lot of hype in the market, a lot of people in the market without maybe the relevant checks on their products. The testing reports can't be found easily, and a range of what's in the product. Is there too much, too little? So that side of it, I think, is, that will be cleared up, and hopefully, the stronger kind of people who have shown their provenance in their products, those type of companies will pull through better, and I'm sure there'll be a bit of a dropout from some as well, because there will be costs associated with it. There will be, effort and time that will have to go into it. So that we're hoping will clear up, some of the stances on some products in March 2021. So that's one route. But I like I said earlier, I believe it will be something that's kind of more regularly used. Education and research will make it into basically a product that is kind of more of a daily supplement, as you see vitamin C or vitamin D3.
Yeah, I think, the novel foods process, which is underway at the moment, there's going to be many iterations of it between now and next March, does provide, or at least addresses the issue around regulation, around quality of products. So, there's a lot of sort of benefits that are going to be, brought on board around sort of safety and quality. I think also with leaving the EU, the EU is beginning to take a different stance on CBD to the UK. So, there's going to be all sorts of movement within the different markets and what's going to be available, but within the UK I think we're going to come out with a much stronger, cleaner, better regulated CBD market. So there's going to be better quality, the good premium quality products on the market, still readily available for consumers to take. And as George said, with the education piece, which is why I work with 4/5, because we're really passionate about the understanding of how to use CBD and products and get the best out of it. I think that's only going to grow to increase consumer confidence as well. So there's a lot of movement, but I think the CBD market is looking pretty rosy for good quality products going forward.
Yeah, I think as well with the increase of standard and things like that, it will help for any of those who are unsure about it or have kind of concerns about it, because obviously it's so linked to cannabis, and you know, that's what a lot of people still think of, and they think, oh, can't be using that. So I guess we'll just tie up now. What would you both say if somebody said, I've heard about it, but I don't not sure, what kind of words of kind of, I guess, encouragement, because obviously you're both very big advocates of it, you would say to somebody who's just not really sure about it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I would take it from a clinical perspective. You know, do you need it? Why do you want to take it? You know, let's have a discussion around, you know, what your reasons are for wanting to take it, and then you know, signpost to a good quality product and say, try it. You know, start low, go slow, try the spray. You know, for a couple of weeks, talk to the company. You know, say more than happy, you know, come and talk to me as well, and you know, we you know, can actually see whether the benefits are going to be gained. But yeah, there's no doubt, you know, in my clinical experience, you know, all the research that I've read, that you know, the benefits of taking CBD as part of a program can be really, you know, quite significant and long lasting as well. So yeah, give it a go.
Just jumping in before George answers that question, is this a question that's come through yesterday evening? Is there anyone who shouldn't be taking it? So you said you've worked with all different ages, but is there any kind of group that at the moment there's some question marks about, or you're seeing doesn't work for?
Sure. So, I mean, you know, really, you know, under the age of 18, that, you know, the child side, that all is another whole issue and another whole discussion. So we'll stick with the sort of the adult side and around athletes. There is a potential for interaction with medications. This isn't exclusive to CBD. You know, most plant material that we eat in our diet, I mean, grapefruit juice, for example, you know, we're told not to have grapefruit juice because it interferes with blood thinning medication. You know, it's just a plant material that can affect how the liver breaks down certain drugs. So at the moment, evidence seems to suggest that any more than 50 milligrams or more than 50 milligrams of CBD daily has the potential to affect how the body breaks down certain antidepressants, painkiller medications, blood pressure medications, those types of groups of drugs. So I would always say, if you're already on existing medication, then, you know, you need a discussion, you know, with a professional around, you know, sort of taking CBD, but that's the case for taking food supplements, or, you know, it's not exclusive or special to CBD. So yeah, so I would say, you know, always be careful, you know, and you know, be aware of what you are taking and whether there are any potential interactions there. But that's not to say that with a lower dose CBD that you couldn't take it if you were on certain types of medication. So in terms of certain groups, the main one is pregnant women, and you know, if you're breastfeeding women, and you know, sort of young children, because there's just not the safety evidence there. So yeah, so I would steer clear, you know, if you fall into those brackets, but otherwise, you know, sort of a discussion as to whether it could be suitable is, you know, certainly appropriate.
Yeah, so quite normal in regards to how any other supplement or medication, you know, I need to have a look. So George, obviously from a business side, you're going to encourage people to take it, but from using your athlete hat this time round, if anyone said to you, I'm not quite sure, or if any of your teammates or whatever said, not quite sure, does it really work? What would be kind of your advice or your message to them? Oh, I think you're just on mute.
Sorry, I've done that a couple of times. I'd say, try it. I mean, if you're looking for something different, if you're looking for you know, and you haven't tried it before, then yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. As long as you're going through the right companies in terms of testing and bits like that, I think I'd say it'd be a no-brainer, really.